when it comes to like all the adversity you dealt with transactionally, you're a bingo card when it comes to some of these things. You look on the baseball reference page, DFA, free agent, released, Rule 5, all the things you could really imagine somebody going through, you went through. So in these certain aspects that are inevitable, how do you deal with that mentality? Because free agency from a reporter is nothing. I don't even think, unfortunately, I don't think about you guys in a human aspect in those aspects, which sucks because I do it differently when it's reporting. But free agency is very much just transaction. But what's the mental approach when you're hitting free agency or you get released or any of those types of scenarios?
Yeah, it's the unknown, like that, and that's the hardest thing. I do a couple of things on that. I go to these career summits. Major League Baseball players, alumni, shout out to them. They do amazing things. And they put this career summit on for players trying to transition from playing, whether they're at the last year of their career, transitioning onto what they want to do next. And so it just takes me back, man. Every time I was, whether it be DFA'd, and this is even back midst of my career. This is even before I got to the big leagues. You start second guessing, is this ever going to work out? What am I going to do next? I got no idea. This is my whole identity. So that always comes up. Now that's on the when someone tells you we don't want you anymore side. But then, like, for example, Blake Snell recently this offseason. So he's here in Seattle and I got a chance to talk to him. And this is, I mean, spring training had already started. We're at Dave and Buster's and he's shooting the little popper shot thing. And I'm like, hey man, I didn't want to really bring it up where it was like, all right, so who are the teams? What are the offers? I just didn't like, what's the update? Because I knew that it was super slow, as we all know, with some of the RSN stuff going on and everything else. So I didn't, and he gave me a couple teams, and he's like, it's hard. He just basically said it's hard to train every day when you don't even know when you're going to be off, where you're going to go. And so I'll be honest with you, when he went to the Giants and he's like, yeah, I'm going to be ready in 2 weeks. I'm like, really? Like, you're going to be pitching a game in 2 weeks? Like, because what have you done in the last couple of weeks? Because it's so hard. And then, like we talked about Balfour. I remember, a situation with him with, I don't know if you remember, but the Orioles were about to sign him to a deal after he signed with the A's. And they did a physical. And they said no. And then all of a sudden, from a reporter side, Buster Olney came out and said, yeah, the Orioles are making this offer. And then they came out and said, nope, the physical didn't pass it. Well, he had no leverage. Oh. So he's in this no man's land. So from a perception standpoint, he's sitting there. And I remember he was like, I had to turn my phone down. I was on a plane. He calls me. And how he gets before he's about to pitch. The whole plane could hear through. I didn't have my speaker on. That's how he was so angry.
They thought it was the pilot talking over the
I'm turning my phone down. He was so angry because what happened was he's a free agent coming off, good year. The Orioles have been really like stingy in regards to their physicals. Like, something had happened a couple of years prior to that where the doctor just wasn't signing off on anything. And he goes, oh, no, he can't pitch. So he's gone to Baltimore, about to do the press conference, everything. And they're like, oh, we can't do this offer. Buster only finds out about it. It's news. So he's sitting there, I'm looking at this guy. Yeah, but dude, like, you're one of the best pitchers in the game. You're an all-star. You made a ton of money. It can't be that bad. But then when I'm really diving into it, I'm like, man, just the uncertainty, it's really, really difficult. And then Casey Sadler is another example with the Mariners, having this conversation with him. He's a stud. He's had an amazing career. And he keeps saying, I don't know what to do next. I'm like, dude, keep playing. I know no one's calling right now. No one's calling. That's the hardest thing. When no one friggin' calls your phone and you're sitting there and you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. I said to Casey, pitch as long as you possibly can, dude. You're early 30s. You've had some amazing years. Your shoulder's getting back to be right. Someone's going to call you. I mean, it's so difficult, man. And then on top of that, layer on the fact that if you've got a family, kids are getting into school age and stuff like that, it's brutal, man. It's really hard. Fortunately, I didn't have a family while I was playing. I had a family after. But some of these guys, I don't know how they do it. It's hard. Sure.
Yeah. And you're allowed to be selfish in those situations, right?
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned it because Dan Straley just got signed and he's a friend of not just mine, but of the podcast. And he didn't want to give up. And I love him as like a human being and a friend. Yeah. And there were times where I was like, you're really just going to keep doing it? And as a person who genuinely wants the best for him, he's like, Jess, I'm going to do it. I'm like, all right, okay. Like, and he did. And he got a minor league deal.
Good for him. I mean, hey, that's another regret. I wish I kept playing. When I gave up, the phone didn't ring too much. I got sick of it. That
Look, what was the time frame? How long did you give that though?
Well, what happened? It was kind of weird with me. I had a meniscus tear. I got that surgically repaired. We had the World Baseball Classic 2017. I really wanted to pitch in that, and I was coming back from my meniscus. I didn't tell the. Hopefully he's not listening. But the manager of the Aussie team was like, "Hey, are you going to pitch in these qualifiers?" I was like, 100%. These in Sydney. I'm like, absolutely. I'm still playing. And he's like, okay, sweet. And he goes, any injuries? I'm walking literally in crutches. This is like a couple weeks after I had surgery. I didn't know how I was going to. I said, nope, I'm all good. I just didn't want any.
You heard like the clicking in the background. You're like, yeah, good. Yeah. I'm good.
Oh, yeah. And then I'm like, oh, man, I don't know. What's the recovery time? So I'm sitting there going, oh, man, I hope I'm okay. And I've got this, like, my knees strapped up. I'm not trying to be a hero here, but I'm like, I don't care. Like, my arm feels amazing right before I pop my meniscus, right? Arm feels amazing. I'm throwing gas. I went down to Winnable, and I tore my meniscus while I was down there in Winnable in the Dominican Republic. I was throwing a split, the whole bit, right? And then, sure enough, I get my knees repaired. I'm like, it's all right. I'll pitch for Australia. And this is when I was talking to the Mariners about potentially maybe doing, you know how it goes. You just try and get any crumb you can broadcasting wise. It's not like, oh yeah, here's 100 games in the booth. Like,
right.
Like, and I'm going to support the family too. Let's not forget, right?
Totally.
So I'm freaking out money wise. What do I do? But I'm like, okay, I'll go back to Australia. I'll pitch in this qualifier. Don't tell anyone about my knee. I'm okay. I can do it. Velo wasn't great, but it wasn't like I was pumping some 92s, 94s easy in bullpen sessions. I'm like, oh, this is so good because I unlocked a few things, and then sure enough, I go down pitching it. I'm all good, and then after that, I'm like, okay, what do I do here? Like, what am I doing? Like, I'm going back from Australia. It's always hard when I go back to the States because I'm leaving family. My family's all doing good things. They're all got jobs. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm this dude trying to stick around like a Dan Straley. And my wife was so supportive. She's like, play indie ball for $1 a month. Who cares? Keep playing because you never want to look back. Yeah, she didn't care. And so we get back, and then the Mariners kind of said, hey, come to spring training and do some games. I'm like, oh, I love this. This is so much easier than having to deal with this other crap. And so I was supposed to have a showcase. And I'm like, I don't know what team's going to show up. I just canceled it. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I just said maybe in a year. I don't know. Next year I went to the WBC World Baseball Classic, and I just said then and there. I was sitting next to Travis Blackley, actually, a former.
Oh yeah, another A's legend in my mind. Yes,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sitting next to Trav, and it was funny because we both came to the Mariners at the same time, and here we are. I knew I was done, and his locker is next to mine, just like we were in Peoria in rookie ball. And I said to him, man, I'm done. I'm done after this. This is it.
Wow.
Pitch. And I just knew it was all over. So yeah.